So I am with SaRah, and we entered a coaching container last August of 2020. It's now February 2021, and we worked together in a 5-week session series called Empower Your Inner Empress. And SaRah is such an amazing human and being, and I just feel so honored to have worked with you and supported you through this amazing process and just watching your being like open up and flourish and thrive in all of these miraculous ways. And you just did the really deep work and you came with your full self. So it was just such an honor to work with you. But I'd love for our whoever's watching this for you to just introduce yourself, who you are, who you serve, what you do, so they kind of get to know you.
Yeah. So thank you, Lauren. It was my honor to work with you as well. I am so deeply grateful for our work together. Um, I, yeah, it's reverence. It's reverence for the sacred nature of what we created, and it's still unfolding, and it's really hitting me in this moment. Um, So I am a powerful healer. I am a concierge health consultant, a family nurse practitioner, a health and wellness expert, a kitchen alchemist, a guide to the space between worlds, and an artist. I paint. And I came to Lauren because I was one of those types who had kind of done all the programs, done all the stuff, and life wasn't showing up the way I wanted it to still. And I couldn't quite get there on my own. And in some ways I had laid a really nice foundation, but I think that I could just tell that she would be the person to hold a sacred mirror for me. Like, just really hold it up, and that's where we began. And yeah, I'm just really reflecting on all of it right now. It's
Yeah.
really, really hitting me.
So you were saying you were approaching me because you were kind of like you knew what was possible for you and probably what you desired, but you were not quite getting there with maybe the tools that you had or the programs that you did. And were there other reasons? Like, where were you at in your life back maybe in July or August last year?
um, there's a lot of components to it. The highlights are, I have a master's in science degree from Georgetown University. I've done, Mama Gina's mastery program. I've done, sacred sexuality, and I'm really into psychology and eat really healthy. And like, I have all these things floating around. And like I said, it just still wasn't showing up the way I wanted. And I knew I needed, it's like I didn't know what I didn't know sort of space. And I remember reading some of your posts, and it was really fascinating to me how you combined, kind of how I combined, like the energy work and the psychology and the subconscious reprogramming, because that to me is like everything. Bruce Lipton has this quote. He says, you could do talk therapy your entire life, but if you're not rewiring your scripts or your subconscious reprogramming, it's basically pointless. We're all running around like 8-year-olds. So and I had my own, like, I even had my own NLP forgiveness ritual and all these things. So I played around with it, but I loved how you specifically brought all those things together with the inner child work. Um, and it just felt like, there was something more in there to work on. So
Absolutely. And it's interesting, my program was called Empower Your Inner Empress, but we were actually empowering your inner masculine, your inner king, your inner emperor. So
Yeah.
I would love to know like how you had the gnosis, like the inner knowledge, like actually I need to heal my inner masculine.
Yeah, I forgot about that. I remember you kind of being like, well, I think that maybe, it's, we just need to strengthen your feminine. And I was like, no, there's this space. And, I've done all this feminine work and she feels very wild and fun, but there's this structure missing. And, I had been in relationship in the past with, kind of this toxic masculine, and I didn't want to create that anymore. So I was like rewriting all those scripts, and I just realized I didn't have an example for the healthy masculine. I don't think anybody does right now. I mean, there are men's groups starting and there are things happening, but I just realized I have no idea what that looks like. And
Yeah.
it felt like I needed more of the balance. It felt like I needed more of that strength and that that container and the um what is it, like, just that consistent motivation to show up every day, where I was really good at creating and being all these things, but it was more like, okay, now let's do. I needed the do.
Yeah.
um and so that was real fun to play with that, because I found myself like doing all your male meditations, and I'm like,
So
I
funny. I can
got into them before, but yeah, I was doing all of them.
I can log in to see who's doing my meditations and how frequently. And you were like above and beyond any client I've ever worked with. It was like, SaRah's done this 10 times. She did this 10 times. Like you did every meditation like so many times.
I
And
still do. I did like 3 of them this morning.
yeah.
Um, yeah, that was a real game changer as well. So it wasn't just our stuff together, but I made a commitment that I started with the self-love inner child one, and I made a commitment to do that every day. And then it was not only that one, then they would autoplay. So I was already in that meditative space. So then it was like 2. And then some days it would just feel so good. It would be 3, just like kind of this autoplay mode. And what was fascinating is it asks about, densities in your body and that sort of thing. And each day it might have been a different spot, but something else would come up. But then it would be the same memory, but then I would get another insight from a different perspective, or from the other person in the room, more like empathy and compassion from their side and what they were feeling. And so that was just amazing to experience, like how many layers were in one trauma memory.
Mhm.
And by the end of it, I know there's not an end, but like some of them talk about subconscious reprogramming. Some of them, I got to the point where the event didn't even happen. Like
Mm.
completely quantumly rewrote the story.
Ooh, I just got full chills. It was like,
Yeah. Yeah. Like that.
hmm, because what happened to you isn't who you are.
No, no.
Who you
I
are.
even went back into some of them. So I rewrote my childhood, completely changed the script. I went back in and rewrote my parents' childhood.
Ooh, wow.
Yeah.
What a gift.
Yeah.
What a huge gift. Because
Yeah.
so much of the trauma is lineage trauma and it's passed down and it's a cellular imprint and we're just born with it.
And it like not just that, but it was like next level of empathy and compassion. And then just like, it was just like, had this visualization of my dad being still alive and living in San Francisco. And I had this whole story, and it just came and it kept coming and coming and coming. I was just thinking about like just the weighted story of like, oh, my dad already passed in this like really sad, tragic way, versus, oh, he's still alive and he's in the city and like he's still like my loving father.
Mm.
So there were, it just like lightened my story, and it really is just a story.
Mhm.
And it took a lot of healing to get to that place. A
Yeah,
lot.
yeah. It takes a very long time to fully process each emotion and residue and the story from that, and then the judgment or the shame. Like there's so much debris to clear, but once it's felt and seen and heard and acknowledged and held, it's like, oh, okay. Like it's like that's all I needed, and the energy dissipates, and you're not like stuck in that resonance anymore.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I just remember after each session, you were like, people are noticing that I'm different. And you were like, I speak differently, I interact with them differently. So I'd love to know more about that.
Yeah, it was COVID time, so that was interesting. But I just remember going to Home Depot one day, and like the men were literally, and I had been doing a home like remodel project, so I had been going to Home Depot regularly. So it wasn't just like, oh, there's a hot girl in Home Depot. It was like this was a regular occurrence. And then this one day, I was walking around, and literally men stumbling over themselves to help me. And like this like 80-year-old man he's like, that's a really nice jumper you have there. And I'm like, who's this like 80-year-old man says jumper? Like I'm just like, it was just like the cutest thing. And he like walked all the way across the store to help me find this thing. And the auto responses changed, and my autoresponder is like automatically saying no when you actually do want something, or automatically saying yes when I didn't really want to do something. And I just started catching myself in these things like in the moment. And I noticed and it was immediate. And I know, that's the whole subconscious reprogramming component of it. It's like, it's literally like that. And, other things like I would do a healing with my mom, and my mom would call me the next day, and I hadn't talked to her. And she's like, I just had this epiphany, and I was thinking about this thing. And she just shared an insight of something that her and I had been kind of like trying to really get to for years. And all of a sudden she comes to me and is talking to me about the situation completely different.
Wow. It's so huge.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Would you be willing to share what her apology meant to you?
So, my mom is a fucking saint. Like she's a saint. She's a hospice nurse, so she's literally a saint. But then, in a lot of ways, she's had a really hard life. Like a lot of people who tend to overgive, and just like, she's just pure heart. She just gives and gives and gives and gives and gives. And so, and I was always super capable and independent, and I was the firstborn. And so it set up this dynamic where I was very parentified, had a lot of responsibility. And for a long time, I had a really hard time with it. And I finally got to the place where I forgave her for it. But she hadn't forgiven herself for it. And so anytime anything came up with my dad, or, we'd talk about things, this tension would come up, and she wouldn't be able to hold space for my experience because of her own guilt, which is like totally understandable. She's the mom, the parents, like they can't handle the idea of hurting their children. But it was hard, it was like talked about. Like I feel so grateful that I even got to do that with my mom. Like most people can't even get to that space. So for what it was, we had made amends, and we had been able to talk it out in such an amazing way. And I still didn't really feel like acknowledged in it. And through my prolific sharing of, the shifts with you, my mom started working with you. Yeah. And through her working with you, out of the blue one day, she's talking about my sister and I, and this and that and the other. And all of a sudden she's kind of, it didn't really seem like there was a point. And then all of a sudden she's like, and I just want to really say I'm sorry for the pain that I caused you.
Wow. Wow.
And that must have been really hard.
Yeah.
She just let it hang there. And my mom's a talker, and normally she would have been like, oh, but I did the best I could. And I could feel her pull the attention and get really sad and feel the guilt and like pull it off of me. And it would all then be about her, which is, again, totally understandable. It's a lot to hold. And this time, it just hung in the air.
Wow.
It just, like, it's like the apology that like, people wait their whole lives for, sort of thing. And it just like literally cracked my being. And I felt it, and I knew I wanted to savor it. And quite honestly, in my head, I'm like, please don't fuck it up. Please don't fuck it up. Please don't fuck it up. Because I knew I needed to go and take this tender part that had just been like, and savor it. And so I was able to hold space for that long enough to say, thank you. You have no idea how healing that was for me. And I need to go so that I can savor it. And normally she also would have been offended or, kind of scrunched or like, oh no, I said something wrong, or, and she just got it. And she said, is there anything that you need? And she stepped forward even more.
Wow.
And quite honestly, my mama bear, she's always been more of like a best friend. And honestly, it really was the first time in my life where I felt like the king.
Wow. Such a massive healing. Like such a massive repairing of that parental child relationship.
Right?
Yeah. I know.
Uh,
Like, I didn't know that was happening. Like I had no idea. I was like, what?
yeah.
What happened? Like what? Like I had no clue. She didn't say she was gonna do it. It was just on her own accord. Like she was just coming straight from her heart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why I say she's a saint, and like we've made amends because she thinks about things and she processes things, and it's not like she's like, oh, that's on you, like we're not going to talk about that. Like we talk about everything, probably too much. Again, like, level of parentified, sort of thing. But this was like an apology to me, for me, validating everything that I held that was far too fucking much to hold.
Wow. I love that. I love that massive unexpected gift. Like it was just such a
Yeah.
huge gift.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
And kind of like just back to the original question of just like how are people responding to you differently, or like how are you speaking differently? Like there were some pretty specifics that are back in the day. You were like, Lauren, people just like can't believe how different I am. And I don't know exactly what the pinpoints were, but
Oh yeah, there was a
starting
there
to
was a
notice.
really specific one with my like inner circle girlfriends. We had a lunch in the garden, and I just remember sitting there watching them and listening and all this stuff, and just being like this really feeling really at peace. And they all talked about it when they left, and they said, what's up with SaRah? What's going on? There's something really different. Like she just felt like, this is what they said. They said she felt like a proud mother, just in awe of her children. Like there was just this like I was just beaming, like so intently listening to their stories and happy for them. And like they felt this like love pouring out
Mm.
on them, and like 100% present. And, as opposed to like, well, all four of us are Gemini in some way. So we're like, la, 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 la. We interrupt and we digress. There's like 20 storylines all going and we're all hanging. We all are just like boom, 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 boom. And it was so different. I was just like listening and present and in my body, and not this huge need to talk. And, like, that was probably one of the biggest insights that I got to, was one of the inner child meditations. Like, my inner child I said, what does she want to say? And she was really young, and she just screamed at the top of her lungs, listen to me. And I mean like bloody murder, like screamed. And I've always had this really interesting feeling, like when talking in groups or talking to friends, like that people weren't really listening to me. And it was the weirdest feeling because I could tell, but I didn't understand why. And I knew it was an energetic thing. And like I said, I'd done all these things, but it just never, ever made sense. And I just couldn't understand it. And what I realized is I'd done all these tasks, like, oh, I learned how to network, and I learned how to, go and do these things. And I learned how to be more my feminine. And so it was like tick boxes. But this was changing the base vibration. And so the base vibration of my being was a little kid just screaming. And so it was loud. So people weren't listening, because I'm like literally like, listen to me, listen to me, listen to me, listen to me, is the energy they're feeling as I was talking. And they're like, ah. It's what I got from it. And it totally made sense with how I interacted with, and not everybody, but like, it was a consistent thing enough that I was like, what the fuck is that? Like, I don't understand.
You would never really discover that voice or that healing if you hadn't gone in deep enough to hear her.
No,
Like
because it was a base energy. I had done all the tasks. It was a base foundational energy that my vibration, my voice, my inner foundational energetics was like operating from this place of not being heard, no matter what I said.
Wow.
Exactly.
Wow. Mind blown.
Yeah, exactly.
So like what's possible for you in your life now? Like where are you at now? What are you working on? What are you creating? What's going on in your life now?
So many things. Well, I pivoted in my business in quite a dramatic way, and I work in mind body medicine, so in a lot of ways it's similar to what you do, and you're working more in the relational point and I work more in the health point. And it's all about getting rid of guilt and shame and obligation and moving to intentional living. So like a real base foundation of my practice is forgiveness and like clearing out the old, and getting rid of like these shoulds and have tos, and oh, I should eat this diet and I should exercise this way. And it's like, none of that matters. The only thing that matters is how you feel in your own body. What's your truth? What is, like, how do you feel when you eat that? Like, I'm not like, oh, drink this green drink and do this and do that and the other. It's like, what is true? And I have a lot of different modalities to work within that. I'm working on launching a course right now, and it has to do with envy. And
That's a juicy topic.
oh yeah, like I got this huge download on envy being the root of all evil. Like I thought, shame and guilt are the low, but actually envy is below shame or guilt. You wouldn't have shame or guilt if somebody wasn't like, shame is imposed envy in a way, like, oh, you should act like your sister. Why aren't you acting like your sister? And guilt is self-imposed, like, oh, I don't have this, or I should be doing it like this, or the other. And it completely dismisses your own sovereignty and your own power and your own life and your path. And like, it's the basis for capitalism, keeping up with the Joneses. And a lot of it's about religion, like, oh, you have to go through me to get to God because I'm the path to God, as opposed to like having my own truth and path in life in relation to whatever your source of, the bigger whole is, whether that's God or universe or source or, those sort of things. And like having to go through anything else to figure that out is just like completely obliterates our own personal responsibility, like our own autonomy to actually make choice and in our life. And it's just, I don't know, there's a lot of stuff brewing in there. And
Ooh, I'm so excited
yeah,
for that to come out and that lesson to come out. And the way that I kind of look at it is just, and I don't know if this is a correct viewpoint, but I kind of look at it as the the water that we're swimming in is very much a patriarchal conditioned paradigm. And
yeah,
paradigm really wants to keep you fragmented. It's like
totally.
if you're fragmented, then you need to you have to like work and go up the social ladder and the socioeconomic ladder and the status ladder and you're never full. Like there's never a point in that system where you're whole, healed, complete, healthy, thriving in all areas of your life. You might be financially thriving, but are you healthy? Like are you fulfilled? Are you satisfied? Are you satiated? It's like, and it's such a different paradigm to just go, oh, I'm whole right now and like, there's nothing that I need to do. And coming from this viewpoint of holism, it's like it's literally just a moment switch.
Mhm.
It's just like turning a different paradigm and it's like, oh, I can ground into the earth, I can take a deep breath, and there's nothing that I actually need to do outside of myself to establish my truth.
That's it right there.
Yeah.
And that's the wacky thing that is, like, a lot of the times with my clients, their actual activities don't look any different.
Mm,
It's all here.
mhm,
It's them. We waste so much energy on guilt and shame and obligation and shoulds and have tos and all of these things and envy. And we free it up when we just give ourselves permission to be who we are. And sometimes, there is a little bit of like this like rejiggering phase where you're kind of in this goop and it's uncomfortable and you're like, I don't know which way's up, which is actually very, very meaningful to
mhm.
solidify the newness. So we kind of volley back and forth for a little bit. But like their life might not look that different,
Mhm.
but they're choosing it.
And the energetic inside, probably that like their come from and their energy set point is probably massively different.
So different.
Yeah.
This doesn't even have to be a spiritual framework. Like I was in the allopathic medicine system for 20 years. So I can meet my clients in, their Western medical diagnosis, talk about visualization and, just really base meditation. But, if you get into quantum physics and all these things, like there's so many different tools and languages to access this
Mm.
that it's just really fun to play with because yeah, it's just so intuitive and individualized. And that's what health should be. Health is individualized. Like we don't
Yeah.
like most people don't follow the labs. Like I don't do labs. Like how do you feel? I don't care if you're on this elimination diet. Like
Mhm.
how do you feel when you eat those things?
Absolutely. 100%.
Um, so yeah, it's
I
just
love it. I love your crystal clarity because when back in August, you were like, I want to work with clients and I want to start my health practice and I want to start this thing. And you probably had to an extent, but now you're just like, boom, like super, super, super clear.
yeah, it's I flipped some pretty big foundational switches in there, and I don't know. Like I said, I had done a lot of work before, and I am always doing these things. So, it's not like it was any one thing.
Mhm.
It's just this step fashion, like slow and steady. And that to me is what really is the lasting change. I see that with my clients. Like it, we think that, oh, meditation isn't really helping. No, if you do meditation every day, it's making a difference. So it's these little things that you add to your routine every day
Mhm.
that make a monumental difference in our life. Like your monkey mind, all of a sudden you'll just notice one day, oh, I don't have my monkey mind anymore.
Right?
Like it's literally gone.
Totally. Mine is so turned off that I'm like, I kind of want it back. Like, I'm like, where? What?
I'm like, I just realized this the other day. It was about 2 weeks ago. I was like, oh, it's gone. It's like literally gone. Like
Mhm.
if somebody would have told me that was possible, or said you're out of your mind, because I'm so cerebral and nerdy and I love thinking about things, but it's different. It's like now my thoughts are intentional and I think about the things I choose, as opposed to the default mode network being in this automatic negative um, monkey mind. And now my inner voice changed. Like she says, and sometimes they're both in there hanging out helping me. Yes, dear.
Aw.
It's like the sweetest. It's the sweetest thing. It's like, yes, dear. Oh, do you want some tea? You know, like it's like the sweetest thing in the world. I'm like, yeah,
I love
that's,
that.
that sounds nice.
Like just having an inner compassionate frame. It's just, oh, how do I speak and listen with empathy or with compassion, with kindness, with sweetness? Like there's kind of like a playful sweetness to your inner voice.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Aww. Well, just to wrap up, what would you say is like the primary gem that you're now embodying from this work together?
Oh,
Hmm.
it's it's a feeling, and it started, I think, like that little girl that was screaming, listen to me, like with this outward, kind of like 4 feet, 5 feet outside of my being. And now it just feels like I have this whole group, like all my archetypes and my beingness is now turned inward, facing me, and we're all taking care of each other.
Mm,
Like there's this inner beingness with myself that's in my body, and so it used to be outward referential, trying to get approval or being heard or being seen or that sort of thing. And it doesn't mean that I don't want to interact with humans, but it just that like neediness is gone,
mm.
and there's this beingness.
Little chills.
Mm. 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 I find myself like emoting more too, like Taylor. I'm like, like it just like everything's just like so juicy and like,
Mm.
mm,
I feel that. Oh,
yeah,
you're just such a magical, mystical, powerful woman. And I think every session when we would go deep into your body mind, I would just be like, what the? Oh my God. It was always so powerful. It was like full on energy speaking from multiple dimensions. And it was
yeah.
such an honor to hold space for
Oh,
you in that place and just see all of this magic unfurling and you fully owning your gifts and your embodiment and your femininity and your masculinity and just this beautiful integration of all that you are. Mm,
that's actually a really great thing, and I'm glad you said that because um, thank you. I fully receive that, and um, that is your superpower,
mm,
and so that's what I will mirror for you is when we're in session, because like I know so much and we have a similar framework for how we work for things, and like you have your tools which are different and all these things, so we were like already meeting at this like similar space, so it was really fun to work with you. But you have this intuitive superpower and you would go places that I didn't even expect, and I don't know where you, but I could tell it was intuitive. Like it wasn't just like, oh, I'm going to use this tool thing. You would go somewhere and I was like, and we would just drop into this other level. And so you can have all these things that you're listing that you're doing, but you have
mm,
this whole other beingness to you
mm.
that is pure magic.
Aw, thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah. Oh, it's amazing how easy the intuition comes to me. So I don't think it's like amazing. I'm like, what? That's like it's like riding a bike, and I just get on the bike, and so it's such an easeful thing. So I kind of forget that it's even a gift. Yeah.
Definitely. And I can feel it because this is what I do as well. Like it wasn't like you were pulling a tool, like it was an intuitive hit and we would drop somewhere that was just like whoa.
Mm, mm, yeah. We would go deep. We would definitely go deep. And that's why like coaching is so magical. It's a co-created experience and it's like I can only take you so far as you're willing to go and then I'll have a suggestion and then you'll say yes. And so it's always like a dance and it's co-creative and so I'm responding to like what you're giving me and then meeting that and yeah, it's just such a co-creative experience. Yeah. I'm so grateful for you. So grateful to witness you, and I can't wait to meet you and hug you in person someday.
Yes, please, Hawaii soon, please.
Come to Hawaii. Okay. Oh, sending you so much love.
Yes, 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 yes.
Beautiful. Well, mad aloha to you.
Thank you, my
Yeah.
love. Thank you.
Mm. Mm.